time to face facts, and for many teams that means, well, this season is a lost cause, which often also means a new head coach is coming to town. And so we're going to look at the offensive coordinators who have some data to back up their candidacy for some of these open head coaching jobs. We're, of course, brought to you by MyBookie.ag. Eric Eager. I'm George. Let's go ahead and start with the offensive side of the ball. So we have a coaching model that looks at just how much are these coaches getting out of their players, right? Using the grades that we have to see how much value are they, actually adding to the players that they've got on the field.
Yeah, and in New England we have Josh McDaniels, who has been obviously the orchestrator of a good offense with Tom Brady. But if you look at kind of their offensive personnel, you can see that he's actually getting more than I think the sum of the parts. They've had Brandon Cooks as their number one receiver. They've had Chris Hogan as their number one receiver at times. Julian Edelman, ACL one year, the star another year. Josh Gordon comes in this year. He's assimilated well. And they've been, pretty good no matter what. James White has been their running back. LeGarrette Blount's been their running back. And they've still done great. So in our metric, he shines as a top 5 offensive coordinator over the past few years. And so, even though he's had his turn at the plate as a head coach before, we think he'd be a good candidate again.
Yeah, maybe he can find a really functional team to offer him a job that he can then accept. Maybe we'll look at some guys who are more likely to actually take a job if they are offered one, because I would sort of think that McDaniels is pretty set in New England after what happened last year. But a guy who certainly has flown under the radar is Randy Fincher of the Pittsburgh Steelers. That offense was supposed to be great.
Yep.
Ben Roethlisberger hasn't been that great, and yet the offense is still humming along, pushing out points. Obviously, we've got Antonio Brown, but you really think that you need great quarterback play, and without Roethlisberger playing that well, what Fincher's been able to do is laudable.
Yeah, the Steelers have been 5th in the AFC in early down EPA per pass play. That's, again, despite the fact that Big Ben Roethlisberger has his worst PFF grade since 2006. That's without Le'Veon Bell, who we know the value of a running back isn't as high as people think, but he's both good as a receiver and as a runner. Their offense really hasn't skipped a beat, especially within the last month, and I think Fincher, in his first season as an offensive coordinator, has really shined here.
They actually upgraded at running back. I hate to break that to you all, but James Conner actually doing better than Le'Veon Bell did last season. So in spite of the upgrade at running back, Fincher is still doing a great job of adding value to that team. We've got 2 more here to talk about. Before we do, want to make sure that if you are looking for a way to make your sports viewing experience more exciting, you want to head to MyBookie.ag. Even if it's not football, any sport that you could possibly want to watch, MyBookie.ag allows a way to make that more exciting. Go and place a bet, big or small. You can even do it after the game started because they have live in-game betting. It's something that both of us like to use quite often. So head to MyBookie.ag, use promo code PFF to get a dollar for dollar match on your first deposit. It's pretty simple. Go to MyBookie, play, win, get paid. All right, so 2 more that we've got. We're going to start on the defensive side of the ball now in Philadelphia.
Yeah, so Jim Schwartz, he's like McDaniels, has had an opportunity to be a head coach, and I think his time with Detroit a little bit underrated. A Detroit team that hadn't won a game prior to his arrival, took him to the playoffs. And Detroit's been pretty functional since, so he's had a good stay there. And now in Philadelphia, obviously they had the Super Bowl win last year in great deal due to his ability to take guys like Patrick Robinson, who had been busts, and make them into good players. Jalen Mills as well. This season they've been a little bit down defensively, but actually I think on a statistical perspective, they have the 3rd lowest EPA allowed per play in the early downs offensively so far this season. So he's been pretty good despite I think having injuries on his side of the ball for Philadelphia.
Their lack of performance at the cornerback level is something that's hard to overcome, right? And so for them to actually be a passable defense, an above-average defense, right, still generating pressure at a top 3 rate in the NFL, is impressive, and is something that if he can continue to do is going to really help that team as they move on towards the playoffs, where, of course, being able to stop the pass would be rather valuable. One more that I want to talk about is a team that certainly is not getting a lot of press for doing good things and will probably be looking to replace a lot of pieces this coming season, and that's the Arizona Cardinals, where maybe their defense is playing a little bit better than the offense is actually giving them credit for.
Yeah, so Al Holcomb is in his first year as the DC in Arizona, and we know that they're switching over from the 3-4 to sort of like Carolina 4-3 here. They've done a really good job of using players like Buda Baker as blitzers, but also slot players. And, he's just shown up in our metrics as, being a better coach than I think that the scoreboard would suggest during the course of the season. It might be, I think a sneaky candidate to, be a head coach someday.
Okay, let's get out of here with this, because if I'm hiring a head coach, there is a 0% chance that I am looking for a guy that was a defensive coordinator to be my head coach. Can you dissuade me from that in any way, shape, or form, or are you of the same mind?
I think every good head coach is going to be able to delegate to a certain extent, right? And so if you hire a defensive-minded coach who gives the offense over to a brilliant offensive mind, I'm okay with that. Much in the same way, sort of the other side of the coin with Sean McVay, who gave all of the defensive reins to Wade Phillips when he started. I think if you see the analogous side, I think a defensive coach is fine.
So that is nice and fine, but here's my reasoning. If you're a brilliant offensive mind, you're not going to be an offensive coordinator, so it'd be very hard to actually get that person to come in and be your offensive coordinator. I just think that the value of offense is so great that anyone that's at least passable offensively is going to be made a head coach, and you want to be one of those teams. And the other thing that I would say is, look, you want your head coach to be directly involved with the most valuable part of your team, and that's your quarterback. And so I think there's just no way that you can ignore the fact that offense is more important, and so your coach should be an offensive-minded head coach. So that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, I think guys like McVay started as offensive coordinators, right? So I agree with you that if you can find a guy like him, it's going to be brief because they're going to be a head coach, relatively quickly. But yeah, that would be the only way I would take a defensive guy, is if he could find somebody like McVay to be his coordinator.
Yeah, or Bill Belichick, who happened to get a guy like Tom Brady and Josh McDaniels.
Yep.
Anyways, we will be back tomorrow with more great stuff on the trade deadline and everything else that you could possibly want. In the meantime, head to ProFootballFocus.com and check out the PFF forecast. We'll see you guys later.